Hi, my name is Kenzie Anderson, and I'm going to be presenting on Karen Horney. So, as part of this presentation, we will go over her personal life, her works, theories, and publications, and the influence that she has today. So, as part of her personal life, she was born Karen Danielson on September 16th, 1885, in Langenese, Germany. So, she was born to parents Bernd Danielson and Clotilde Sonny van Ronselen. She also had an older brother, also named Bert, who she believed that her father greatly favored. She also had 4 other half-siblings from her father's previous marriage, although they did not have any contact. So as part of her education, at the age of 9, she dreamed of becoming a doctor, although it was practically impossible in Germany at the time. However, at age 13, she began keeping diaries that detailed her plans for the future. And in 1906, Karen began school at the University of Freiburg Medical School. She was one of the first women to enter a German university and attended one of the first universities to admit women to its medical program. She later transferred to the University of Göttingen and then to the University of Berlin, where she graduated with an MD in 1911. So while she was working on her MD, she got married to Oscar Horney, who was an economics student, and they eventually gave birth to their first daughter, Bridget, in 1910, and they eventually had 3 daughters together. In 1923, Oscar's firm collapsed, and shortly after, he developed meningitis. In addition to dealing with Oscar's illness and newly argumentative nature, Karen became extremely depressed and dissatisfied within her marriage, even realizing that her husband had a domineering and authoritative personality just like that of her father's. So in 1926, the couple had separated and were then divorced by 1927. So after Karen had received her MD, she did practice medicine for a couple years before becoming interested in psychoanalysis. At this point, she began working with Carl Abraham, who was a friend and collaborator of Sigmund Freud. So while working with Abraham, she completed over 500 hours of treatment 6 times a week and eventually joined the Berlin Psychoanalytic Society, holding the office of secretary. So in 1920, the society opened the Polyclinic in the Berlin Psychoanalytic Institute, with Horney being one of the founding members. At the institute, Karen lectured on psychoanalysis, conducted research, and treated patients in her private practice and at the Polyclinic. After her divorce from Oscar, Freud became slightly unsupportive of Horney's research in feminine psychology and became very dissatisfied and disinterested in her differing opinions and ideas. So, due to this and growing Nazism in Germany, Horney migrated her and her 3 daughters to Chicago in 1932. This move was also motivated by Franz Alexander's invitation to become his assistant and to help him set up the Chicago Institute of Psychoanalysis. So in 1934, Horney moved to New York City to join the New York Psychoanalytic Institute, where she continued to teach and write papers. In 1941, she left the New York Psychoanalytic Institute and established the Association for the Advancement of Psychoanalysis and became the dean of the American Institute of Psychoanalysis, and later even becoming the founding editor of the American Journal of Psychoanalysis. So, Karen Horney died on December 4th, 1952, and at that point she had remained the dean of the Association for the Advancement of Psychoanalysis and the the dean of the American Institute for Psychoanalysis and the founding editor of the American Journal of Psychoanalysis. And after her death in 1955, the Karen Horney Clinic was founded in her honor and has still remained a vital center for mental health treatment, training, and research. So, throughout her life, Karen Horney published several different works detailing her findings in areas of psychoanalysis, feminine psychology, neurosis, self realization, the overvaluation of love, and many more. So, at this time, Freud was actively working on penis envy, which stated that women were envious that women did not have a penis, basically. However, Horney largely rejected this idea, stating that this was based on a male perspective compared to a female perspective. So she introduced the idea of womb envy, which stated that men were actually envious of a woman's ability to bear children, and that this envy could result in an unconscious motive to belittle women. So, in her view, Horney believed that feelings of womb envy manifested itself in men claiming superiority in other fields. So, rather than in the literal sense of the term, Horney slightly agreed with penis envy, but in a metaphorical sense. So, basically saying that women felt inferior due to their gender, but not due to the literal absence of the phallus. Horney also rejected Freud's concept of neurosis. So, she believed that it resulted from interpersonal relationships, especially in childhood, and was driven by social and environmental contexts rather than biological drives. So she largely believed that neurosis was caused by basic needs that were not met in childhood, later coming up with the three types of neurotic needs, which describe how an individual interacts with and perceives other people. So there are three types: the compliant type, the detached type, and the aggressive type. So the compliant type can be characterized by vulnerability towards feelings of helplessness and isolation, with a particular need to be loved and appease others. Whereas the compliant type, or in addition, the compliant type will avoid confrontation, seek approval and affection, and will experience interdependence. The detached type pulls away from others as a way to cope with anxiety and has an overriding need to be left alone. In addition, it can be characterized by a strong desire to be self-sufficient and suppress their emotions. However, the aggressive type is mistrusting of others and views others as hostile, with a particular need to feel powerful and to be in control of others. So this type of character is characterized by being exploitative, competitive, and having an extreme sensitivity to personal weakness. Horney also proposed that people with the aggressive type personalities are either narcissistic, perfectionistic, or arrogant and vindictive. In addition, Horney also proposed the 10 neurotic needs, being labeled as the need for affection and approval, the need for a partner, the need to restrict one's life, the need for power, the need to exploit others, the need for prestige, the need for personal admiration, the need for personal achievement, the need for independence, and the need for perfection. Overall, Karen Horney's theory of neurosis and her proposed neurotic needs, along with many other works of research, have suggested that neuroticism can greatly affect behavior and can contribute to a higher risk for anxiety, depression, and emotional instability. So, Horney also worked on her theory of self realization, which also very much relates to her theory of neurosis. So, she described the real self and the ideal self. And the real self can be described as the core of one's personality and potential. And the ideal self is the image of oneself, often the version that we wish to be, which can be shaped by societal and cultural expectations. So, Horney believed that neurosis arises from a discrepancy between the two selves. Also, according to Horney, so the development of a neurotic personality interferes with the healthy psychological growth of the real self, which occurs with the development of basic anxiety. So, in an attempt to overcome this anxiety, a child will adopt either the compliant type, the detached type, or the aggressive type, which we had previously discussed. In addition, due to the formation of the idealized self, true self realization never occurs. So, neurotic people will eventually enter a cycle of self loathing as a result of striving to become this idealized self, which Horney labeled as the despised self. So, according to Horney, in order to obtain one's real self and achieve true self realization, people need a warm atmosphere with healthy relationships. So later in life, Horney attempted to analyze herself using her idea of feminine psychology, which resulted in her essay, The Overvaluation of Love. So this essay follows 7 women who are all similar to Horney in terms of social backgrounds, and they all have an obsessive need for male attention and validation, but are unable to form satisfactory relationships. So she believed that their obsession is tracked to a childhood situation where they had come up second best in the competition for a man's love and affection. So these women typically respond by withdrawing from the competition of developing an overwhelming rivalry with other women. So the women will develop several defenses as a result, and is labeled by Horney a vindictive triumph as a way of coping with anxiety and self-hate. So due to her influence today, she may not have been as remembered as Freud, but she has still made several contributions to psychology, and particularly in feminist psychology. So her theories on women's feelings of inferiority, being rooted in social and cultural factors rather than biology, have gained great popularity, especially in the context of movements like Me Too and greater equality pushes. In addition, her work on neurotic needs remain relevant with links to modern personality disorders, and has influenced other psychologists like Erikson and Maslow, who have shaped humanistic psychology and the hierarchy of needs. Despite some of her work being outdated, Horney's impact on psychology and gender studies is lasting, which has made her a significant figure in the field of psychology. And just to finish up, I have a quote here from Horney, which goes back to her at around age 8 when she received many comments from her father on her looks. And she decided that if I couldn't be pretty, she decided that I would be smart. So thank you for listening.